In number 10, we talk about which statement is always true. Pretending that arc BC is 100 degrees, that makes the central angle 100 degrees. And then that makes this inscribed angle one half of that, or 50 degrees. And that corresponds to choice number 2. Here's my diagram for this situation. You have a 20-foot support leaning against the wall at a 70-degree angle. This might not be drawn to scale, not drawn to scale. Pardon me if it's not. We're going to use some right triangle trigonometry to find. So we're looking for the opposite side. We're given the hypotenuse, so we're going to say sine of 70 degrees equals x over 20. Now what I do for myself, making sure that I am in degree mode, is I am going to calculate sine of 70. I get 0.9397. And then what I could do is just cross multiply here to find my answer. I get 18.7938. And of course what they do here is they put both of these similar answers here, but rounded to the nearest tenth, you have to change this to an 8. So 18.8 is your answer. When I see the word perpendicular, I know we're talking about negative reciprocal slopes. So what I'm going to do first is I am going to find the slope of these 2 points. Negative 7 minus 5 and 5 minus negative 11. So I should get negative 12 over, what is this, 16? Okay, so now we have to do the negative reciprocal. So it's going to be positive 16 twelfths. 16 twelfths reduces to 4/3. So you're looking for which of these questions have 4/3 as their slope. Not 2 and not 4. So we get down to 1 and 3. It looks like we're also going to have to calculate the midpoint since we're talking about bisector. So what I have is negative 6 over 2 and negative 2 over 2. So negative 3, negative 1 is my midpoint. So which of these formulas is plugging in negative 3 and negative 1? It's choice number 1. Now I understand these are plus signs, but remember it's all because of the point slope formula. What I've done here is I've taken out this small triangle, SUT, and I have H and 12, just like they have here. Now what I've done here is I've taken RSU out. So I've taken this out and almost like stood it up. So it looks like this, RSU. Imagine rotating it 90 degrees so that it's standing up on its end and getting rid of that. So if I use a proportion, well, H over 12 needs to equal 30 over H. Then if you cross multiply, you get H squared equals 360. Take the square root of both sides, you get H equals 18.97. Well, in my calculator, I know that 6 times the square root of 10 is 18.97. Number 14, what is the slope of the altitude from A to BC? I know the altitude is a line drawn perpendicularly to the vertex. So what I'm going to do is find the slope of BC. Slope of BC, and then I'm going to take the negative reciprocal of it. So the slope of BC is 3 minus 1, 7 minus 2. You should have 2/5. Now the negative reciprocal is going to be negative 5/2. Choice number 4. Number 15 would be choice number 4. Now we know that angle E is congruent to angle J because the triangles are similar. Remember, in order for them to be similar, you needed to prove angle congruence. So because these are congruent, we say tangent of E. Well, I can replace it with the tangent of J. These are the same thing. So the tangent of J, if you notice, is the opposite over the adjacent. And that is choice number 4. And number 16, we know that vertex A corresponds to vertex K. So if you notice, going from A to K, it looks like I'm doing a reflection over the x-axis. For example, vertex D connects with vertex N, and it looks like it's a reflection over the x-axis, choice number 3. What I like to do here, first of all, I know that since this is 115, this is 65. And since this is 65 and that's 65, these two lines are parallel because their alternate interior angles are congruent. So these triangles are similar. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this triangle and I'm going to flip it so that it's in the same correspondence as this big triangle. So for example, you see how angle D is 65? Well, I'm going to put angle D over here so that it's in the lower left corner, just like that top one. So if DC is 4, then that makes this 4. All I've done is basically flipped it over and twisted it in a sense. So I'm kind of not looking at this one anymore. I'm looking at this one. So to set up my proportion, what I'm going to say is question mark over 4, question mark over this one is equal to 15 over 6. So I'll say x over 4 equals 15 over 6, 6x equals 60, x equals 10. And number 18, they know that 1.2 ounces, we know that 1.2 ounces of salt per 1 liter. We know that 1 liter is 0.264 gallons. I got this from my reference sheet. Now I want to know how many gallons are in one pound of salt. Or excuse me, how many gallons would contain 1 pound of salt, excuse me. So I changed 1 pound to 16 ounces. So what I'm going to do is set up a proportion. 1.2 ounces is 0.264 gallons. And that's equal to 16 ounces is how many gallons? Now remember, in order for these proportions to work, all these labels need to match on both sides, ounces to ounces, gallons to gallons. So if I cross multiply, we'll call this x. So we'll say 1.2x, and then 16 times 0.264, I get 4.224. I divide by 1.2. 4.224 divided by 1.2 is 3.52. Choice number 2.